Today, I'm going to present a story capable of challenging your perception in a reality where it's not the strongest or the most malevolent who survive, but rather the most cunning. Imagine a post-apocalyptic world that is brutal yet electrifying. Despite the chaos and ongoing destruction, those with the power to defend the planet still persist. Interestingly, the two most powerful people in the world are at odds. But let's start from the beginning. This world is nothing less than a novel, and our protagonist is the only one who has read all 3,000 chapters of this story. The twist begins after he finishes the last chapter, when the apocalypse described in the novel becomes a reality on Earth. This different Sung Jinwo is our protagonist, named Kim Dokja, a 28-year-old college graduate who is about to face the harsh life of a worker. Like many of you, whenever he's on the bus or subway, Dokja picks up his phone to read his favorite novel. One day, Yu Sanga, a work colleague who had never taken the bus before, sat next to him. Dokja, who is not good at talking to people, wasn't sure what to do, and she was eager to talk to him and even interested in seeing what he was reading. He didn't want her to see his phone at all. He didn't want her to find out he was reading his novel 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World. That day, the last chapter, number 3149, was released. Dokja had been the novel's only faithful reader for over 10 years. He remembers reading it during tough times, after being bullied, in the loneliness of college, in the army, and even after becoming an adult. Something unexpected happens. Dokja receives a message from the novel's author thanking him for his loyalty and promising a special gift. The message says that thanks to him, the story could be brought into this world. Who could imagine that the horror would begin now? The atmosphere cools, the subway brakes sharply, and in a corner, a diabolical figure exhales dense smoke. The subway stops in the middle of the tunnel, and everyone is trapped. The moment that will change everyone's life is exactly at 7 p.m. The same hour when this story was revealed. Dokja remembers a familiar situation and feels a chill running through his entire body. As Dokja reflected on this, Sanga whispered, "It's a dokebi." Dokja was surprised, because just like in the first chapter of the novel, a gruesome and horrifying creature appeared in the train car, the being called dokebi. Reality and fiction were now intertwined. The first words of the dokebi were incomprehensible, but striking. The people on the subway, confused, recorded the scene fascinated. Doc wondered if he was the only one who knew that moment from the novel and what was coming. Sanga had no idea what that monster was until it started speaking in English. A teenager, thinking it was a movie shooting, approached the dokebi saying he didn't have time for this. The tension in the air was palpable. The incessant complaints irritated the dokebi, who, to demonstrate that it was no hoax, exploded the teenager's head in front of everyone. This made it clear that the situation was real, not a film. Then, to leave no doubts, the dokebi exploded the heads of another 10 people. Complete terror set in. The diabolical creature laughed maniacally while stating that everyone had enjoyed a great life until now, but that was over. While everyone was paralyzed with fear, a well-dressed man in a suit approached the dokebi, claiming to be wealthy and the manager of a large company, offering money in exchange for his freedom. The dokebi, uninterested in money, burned the notes in front of him and said he would get straight to the point. The dokebi's horns grew, and he flew around the car. Suddenly, system windows appeared for all the remaining passengers, presenting the message that the main mission was about to begin. Prove your value? The mission was clear: kill a living being or more within 30 minutes. Those who failed would meet death. When the demon vanished, everyone was in shock. Trembling with fear, Sanga tried to call the police. Doc quickly explained that there was no escape. They had to treat it as a game and follow the rules like all the other train passengers. She looked at her status window, utterly confused. Doc tried to calm her down and explained the situation. The horned dokebi over there, the lifeless bodies on the floor, a blood-soaked salaried worker in terror, an old lady praying to every god in existence. This all means we're screwed, Doc said sarcastically. Suddenly, a train passenger announced he would take the lead in the situation. He identified himself as Lieutenant Lee Hyansong from the army. Doc remembered that this name appeared in the early chapters of the novel Ways to Survive, but the current situation did not match the description from the novel. At that moment, someone yelled that the Prime Minister was making an official announcement. Sanga moved closer so they could watch together on her phone. The government declared the events to be unidentified acts of terrorism. Suddenly, the dokebi appeared in the broadcast, showing everyone that this was real, not a human prank. Everyone watched on the phone phone while the 30-minute countdown continued, and with only 24 minutes remaining, the time was abruptly reduced to 10 minutes. Panic set in. Doc remembered that another character should have appeared according to the novel. They saw bloodstains on the door of the adjacent train car and discovered that the door was locked. The Dokja announced that if at least one person's mission was not completed in 5 minutes, they would suffer the same fate as a girls' high school, where everyone would fail the mission before time ran out. Lee Ji-hae from Typhon Girls High School was the only survivor by completing the mission at the last moment. The Dokja explained that only one person remained because they waited until the last second to act. Dokja realized that similar missions were given to various other isolated groups, including in the adjacent subway cars. Sangha was paralyzed with fear. Doc remembered that at this point, the protagonist of the novel was supposed to appear, so he tried to access the online novel site to read the first chapter, but the work had been deleted, which was frustrating. However, he remembered that the author had said he would give him a gift by email. Upon checking his email, he found the complete novel sent by the author, who also granted him his first ability, the effects of which he still needed to discover. Doc then decided to quickly read the first chapter, unwittingly activating his speed reading ability. In a matter of seconds, he discovered that the protagonist's story car was 3707, the car next to his, and just then the door of the car was smeared with blood, meaning that things were happening there too. While Doc assessed the situation in the adjacent car, Sangha suggested that they should help the old lady nearby. A student in typical school attire brutally completed the imposed mission by attacking another person. At this moment, reality mirrored the novel's description for car 3706. Only 2 people would survive, Lieutenant Lee and a young man named Kim Nan-won, who was precisely the student who had just acted. The man who had tried to bribe the Dokja, offering money in exchange for his freedom, was the only one who tried to prevent the student from attacking the old lady. The student then turned and confronted the man, questioning if he still had not grasped the gravity of the situation. If someone is not eliminated now, everyone will die as punishment. At that critical moment, the student's words resonated in the ensuing silence. Everyone around, understanding the harsh reality, remained silent, aware that if they did not act quickly, their fate would be sealed. Among them all, the student was the only one who seemed to find pleasure in the chaotic situation. He had accepted the Dokja's rules and executed his task with a grotesque smile. Observing the blood scattered on the floor, it was evident that the old woman's life was hanging by a thread. Lieutenant Lee turned his face away, unable to partake in the barbarity, while the majority gathered to eliminate the old lady. It was strange how resilient this woman was. How much HP did she still have? As the group screamed fervently, Sangha tried to intervene to stop the violence, but Doc held her back. He knew that, under the circumstances, they couldn't simply stop the attack without facing even graver consequences. "Stay calm, I know what to do," he asserted, holding her by the arm while calculating the right moment to act. When a booming explosion echoed from the adjacent car, Doc took advantage of the confusion to act. With a powerful charge, he attacked the white-haired student, hurling him 5 meters away with a surprising impact. The student, confused and indignant at sudden aggression, stood up. "Why did you do that? What injustice is this?" he asked, trying to understand the reason for the violence. Doc, however, ignored his complaints. His target was not the student but the box of crickets that another boy was carrying. With a broad gesture, he grabbed the box and turned to the passengers. "We don't need to finish her off to survive," he shouted, referring to the old woman. Everyone in the car turned their attention to Dokja, some angry that they had not yet managed to complete the mission. "Listen, if we kill the lady, only one person will fulfill the mission to eliminate a living being. And then, who will be next?" he continued, his voice echoing over the sound of panting breaths and anxious murmurs. A tense silence followed Doc's words. The fear was palpable, hitting everyone deeply as they considered the inevitable escalation of violence if they continued on the current path. At the climax in the car, the most agitated student declared that after the old lady, the cowards would be next. This was exactly what Doc had anticipated. He wanted everyone to reject the idea of sacrificing the old lady. Now, with everyone's attention on him, Doc revealed his cunning plan. Killing a living being does not necessarily mean killing a person. Insects also count. With these words, a wave of despair washed over the car, and everyone rushed to secure their own insect to complete the mission. Doc, with a cunning smile, savored the control he had over the chaos he had created. He quickly completed his own mission, and then, in a dramatic gesture, threw the remaining insects into the air, scattering them throughout the car. By making the first kill with an insect, he was rewarded with 100 coins. With only 3 minutes left for everyone to complete their missions, the outraged student criticized Doc for not distributing the insects equally. Doc retorted that there were only 3 crickets in the box, but the student insisted that Doc, like him, wanted to see chaos spread. Although the outraged student was partly correct in his assessment, Doc denied it, maintaining his enigmatic stance. At that moment, he activated his second ability, the ability to read character sheets, an ability that allowed him to adopt the characteristics and abilities of any character from the novel, including those of the impetuous Kim Nam. The student, now with newfound respect for Doc, proposed an alliance, but Doc refused, preferring to maintain his independence. Annoyed by the refusal, the student attempted to attack Doc directly but missed. This failure surprised him, as Doc, armed with the knowledge of the novel, deftly dodged. Doc had unlocked a crucial ability, the all-knowing novel's point of view, which allowed him to anticipate the movements of any character that had appeared in the story. Each attack by the student was predictable for Doc, who easily evaded thanks to his hack that allowed him to foresee every move and intention of his opponent. Knowing each strike before it was even made, he moved with an almost supernatural grace, anticipating every thrust. With only 2 minutes left, the student, driven by blind rage, tried to strike a mortal blow to the immortal old woman, but Doc blocked the attack with his shoulder, unshaken. The confrontation was more than physical, it was a battle of wills. Doc quickly reflected on his past, on all the times he had been humiliated and defeated, but now had changed. He murmured, holding several insect eggs in his hands. He loudly announced for everyone to hear, even eggs are living beings. He crushed the eggs, each counting as a life eliminated, earning a flood of virtual rewards. The student watched in surprise. How could he know this? The amount of coins that Doc accumulated. In a strategic move, Doc quickly converted 2,700 coins into resistance points, making him practically invulnerable to the attacks of the outraged teenager. When the student tried to attack again, his blade didn't even leave a scratch. It was as if it had hit stone. Even if there were enough eggs for everyone to survive, you cannot leave here alive today, Dokja declared, facing the student with a resolve that sends chills down my spine. He stands in front of the rebellious and saying that he will not take any crickets or the lady. His fate is to fail the Dokibi's mission. The final seconds were palpable in the air as the student made one last desperate attempt to strike with his blade. Dokja remained motionless, unshakable. The student's blows were futile. 4 seconds, 2 seconds. The countdown echoed through the car. The student, driven by a mix of desperation and fury, tried incessantly, but it was futile. 0 seconds. And then, a deafening and definitive sound marked the end of time. The survivors in the car, 5 people. Time ran out and the Dokebi returned to the car to check the result. Only 5 people remained and 1 person made hundreds of kills. Besides, he received many points for eliminating the rebellious. Doc used his knowledge to eliminate the student and let the rest of the passengers die for this. Tell me, can the good guys be the most dangerous sometimes? After the dramatic conclusion of the mission, the only survivors in the car were Lieutenant Lee Hyun-song, Yu Senga, the young insect guy, the moneyman Han Mayan, and Kim Dokja, the failed protagonist who transformed amidst the chaos. When time ran out, the outraged, desperate, begged Dokja to let him pass, but Doc, unperturbed, did not move, and the outraged exploded before his eyes. Doc, watching his reflection in the train car window, couldn't believe his own calm. Kim Dokja had eliminated 124 lives, including 1 grasshopper and 123 eggs. However, killing harmless living beings halved his rewards. From a total of 6,200 coins, he received only 3,500. I didn't make this calculation, it was the author of the story, folks. After receiving their rewards, the new state of the world was shown to them through the subway windows. It was clear that not even the army had managed to take down the colossal monsters outside. Dokja, who knew the course of things from the missions in the novel, realized that it might be safer to stay inside the car. Look at the size of those things, it's bigger than my peak, he commented. Just kidding, he didn't say that. Doc was the only one who knew the truth behind everything. All the chaos on Earth was washed by entities known as gods or constellations, who observed everything as if it were a reality show. The first major divergence between the story of the novel and reality was that the outraged was supposed to have survived. His death displeased 2 constellations that sympathized with him. On the other hand, some constellations were impressed with Kim Dokja and sponsored him with an additional 500 coins. The grateful girl approached Doc. Thank you for throwing that cage in my direction earlier. Because of that, I survived, she said with a mix of relief and gratitude. Doc, with an enigmatic expression, replied that it had been a coincidence. It was just your luck. luck, and it won't happen again." These words served as a warning to Sangha and everyone else. From now on, each of them would have to rely solely on themselves to survive. As they absorbed this reality, the Dokja announced that the story had to continue, suggesting more challenges and trials ahead. After the intense first mission, Dok was analyzing the survivors. Surprisingly, besides the lieutenant, who was expected to survive, Sangha and the young boy were only there by luck. The boy survived because Dok left a cricket with him, which was only fair since he was the owner of the insects. For the girl, the situation was different. That old woman was the boy's grandmother, and now he was alone in the world. As an act of mercy, Dok told him that if he wanted to survive, he would need to come with him. It might seem that our protagonist is a kind person who sacrifices for others, but remember, he never intended to save the grandmother. He just wanted to prevent another person from surviving. Good deeds draw more attention from the constellations watching, and thus, they grant more coins to him. Helping this boy is for his own benefit. He knew that each act of kindness could increase his power and influence. The money man, Han Mayan, also survived, despite his incompetence. His luck was a matter that needed no discussion. Everyone implicitly agreed on it. The Dokja then revealed that after the first mission, the survivors would earn the right to be sponsored by the constellations. While explaining what this meant, Dok was already familiar with the concept but kept his knowledge hidden. The deities, seen as gods by some, offered powers to humans, considered weak, to make their struggles more entertaining. A system window appeared, showing the constellations interested in each of the survivors. Dokja was being observed by 4 powerful deities. Sangha, seeking guidance, asked for his help in choosing her sponsor, but Dokja refused to influence her decision, insisting that she should choose on her own. Among Dokja's options was the Abyssal Dragon, powerful but with the drawback of potentially leading to madness. The Diabolical Judge of Flames suggested being evil, but Dokja suspected it might be the constellation Archangel Uriel, a positive influence. The option Concealed Conspirator was quickly dismissed. The last option was the Prisoner of the Golden Bandana, which Dokja identified as Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, an extremely powerful entity. After careful consideration, he chose the Monkey King, wondering about the future consequences of this alliance, especially regarding the protagonist of the novel. Do we need to be enemies? Our protagonist knew that Guy was no friend. After choosing the Monkey King as his patron, Dok began to cautiously plan his next steps. He knew that allying with a powerful and unpredictable entity like Sun Wukong would bring both immense opportunities and challenges. With the ability to foresee upcoming events, thanks to hints from the novel, he was aware of the intrigues and pitfalls that could arise. After choosing their sponsoring constellation, the Dokja informed them that he would return in 10 minutes. Taking advantage of this cursed creature's temporary absence, Dokja called everyone for an urgent meeting. He was particularly interested in securing the lieutenant's loyalty. While discussing with the lieutenant, the director of the company where Dok worked interrupted by placing his hand on Dok's shoulder and questioning if Dok didn't know who he was. Uninterested in past formalities, Dok responded dryly, which annoyed Han Mayan, who was still trying to impose his previous authority. Dokja then coldly said, "Shut up. The normal world is over. Your status and authority are worthless now." His statement left Han Mayan and the others speechless, but aware of the new reality. The lieutenant was the first to acknowledge Dokja's leadership, asking him what the next step was. Dok proposed that they leave the place immediately, an idea that initially paralyzed the group given the danger of the invincible monsters outside. But before they could fully process the suggestion, something began banging on the door of the adjacent wagon, trying to get in. Dok realized that the sole survivor from wagon 3707, the protagonist of the novel, was trying to reach them. He then warned that if they didn't leave that place now, everyone would die before the Dokja returned. The lieutenant, still hesitant, considered the possibility that the survivor from the other wagon was not hostile, but Dok countered, "I saw it through the glass myself. He survived by eliminating everyone else in the subway car, and not just one person. Do you really want to check if he's friendly?" No one thought of anything else but where the exit of this damn place was. As the door of the other wagon threatened to give way at any moment, Sangha then suggested they try to open the jammed subway door. Dok wondered if it would be a solution to use his coins to increase his strength and open the door, but soon he thought about the dangers they would face in the next places, and that it would only be possible if he had coins to help him. Observing the lieutenant's abilities, Dokja decided decided to teach the man how to use his coins and trade them for strength attributes, as this would be useful now and in the future as well. Doc explains the process, and with that guidance, Lieutenant Lee activates the steel strength. With this newfound power, the lieutenant managed to clear the path, and everyone ran through the wagon toward the exit. However, as they were nearing safety, they encountered the Dokja blocking the way. The creature was visibly annoyed that they had moved before he had prepared the next setting. System windows popped up with the new task, escape. The mission was to cross a broken bridge. Without specifying the penalty for failure this time, the Dokja simply watched. Dokja, foreseeing the danger, shouted for everyone to run immediately, while some still questioned why the bridge appeared intact. It wasn't long before the reality of the situation revealed itself. A huge whirlpool formed beside the bridge, and a gigantic water dragon emerged, threatening the destruction of the structure. "Run fast," Doc shouted with all his might, leading the desperate dash to cross the bridge before it collapsed. However, at the height of the tension, the cursed Dokja, wishing to increase the drama for his viewers, further complicated the scenario. He revived all the nearby dead as zombies who began to attack the group on the bridge. They were cornered by zombies from people who had died just hours before, and the situation was dire. They had never fought in their lives and now found themselves trapped. The novel he had read did not mention this scenario that had never occurred, making matters even worse as the giant serpent destroyed the middle of the bridge. The great impact by luck not killing them right there and then. After the sea serpent destroyed the bridge, Dokja found himself in a dangerous situation. On one side, he was trapped with Mayon and Senga. On the other, Gil-yeong and Hyeon-song had reached the safe zone. Suddenly, a message announced that someone had received protection from a constellation. The protection was so strong that Deus Ex Machina was activated, creating a new bridge. Dokja was shocked to realize that the Deus Ex Machina came from Senga, as this only happened when a constellation intervened directly in a scenario. Curious to know which constellation was capable of doing this, Dokja activated his character identification. However, the system did not show the profile, indicating that she was not an identified character. Suddenly, Senga screamed, trying to warn him about something. When Dokja looked back, he was almost hit by a punch, but managed to counterattack in time. With no time to think, he faced a Korean Bakugo who had turned into a zombie seeking revenge. Dokja tried to defend himself while his main concern was crossing the bridge, as only an even number of people could cross it. While thinking about warning to wait for one more person, he saw the Four Eyes fleeing with Senga in his arms. She screamed desperately as she was taken to the other side. Dokja was furious, impressing the constellations with his foolishness. Realizing that the swindler was running very fast, he tried to activate character identification again but failed. Probably, he had obtained some celestial mark from his sponsor. Dokja understood that character identification did not work because they were not characters from Ways of Survival. The zombies attacked him again. While defending himself, he tried to come up with a plan, considering subduing a zombie to cross the bridge with him. Looking at the clock, he realized that only 15 minutes remained until the scenario ended, and his body was already at its limit. Feeling that he might really die this time, his marker ability was activated. A huge book appeared on his back, showing a list of characters he could select. Even though it was an ability he had never seen in the novel, Dokja knew exactly how to use it. He activated the first marking and copied the rebellious teenager's ability, eliminating the zombie with just one move. As the teenager fell for the second time, he said he did not want to die, making Dokja understand a little more about the character. Even after eliminating the strongest one, an entire horde of zombies attacked him. At that moment, a large explosion was seen behind the horde. All the zombies turned to see what it was, and Dokja was relieved to see that he had finally arrived, the original protagonist of Ways of Survival. He calmly approached through the horde of zombies. Jung-yuk asked who he was, scaring Dokja. Shortly after, Hugh grabbed him by the neck and suspended him over the broken bridge. While being questioned about why he was alive, Dokja remembered that the man in front of him was the first means of survival mentioned in the novel, the returnee Yu Jung-yuk. Meanwhile, Hyeon-song tried to peek at what was happening on the other side of the bridge, but was stopped by a barrier similar to the one in the subway. Dokja was literally suspended between life and death when Jung-yuk asked his name. Even after answering his name, he received a punch in the stomach. Hyuk said he had a resilient body and seemed to have already figured out how to use the coins. Dokja found him completely unbalanced as they had just passed the tutorial, and he was already ridiculously strong. As this maniac had already returned 3 times, his mind was completely crazied and began beating Dokja for no apparent reason. Of course, he would not take the beating without doing anything, so he held the punch and called him pro player Yu Jung-yuk. Dokja said he had once been his fan and followed his career as a professional player, although this was a lie, as until recently he was just a novel character. In any case, no one knew Jung-hyuk as well as Dokja, who had been with him for 3,000 1,000 chapters. Even being a fan, the situation did not change. Hyuk wanted to know how he survived in the subway. Dokja asked if he would let him live after answering, but just by analyzing his facial expression, he already knew he wouldn't. Because of this analysis, his understanding of the character increased and the ability evolved, allowing him to hear the thoughts of the novel's protagonist. Dokja took advantage of this and told the truth, saying he survived the first scenario by killing insects. Hyuk was confused, thinking the future had changed because of him, as unlike last time, he killed everyone with an explosion. However, the expression on Dokja's face was very calm, and everything seemed too convenient to be sure if he was telling the truth or not. Hyuk activated the Sage's Eye ability, an SS class ability, which allowed him to see people's characteristic menus. This might be good for Dokja, who did not know his characteristics. However, the inspection was blocked by the fourth wall, making Hyuk even more cautious. Dokja was shocked by an ability that could block the Sage's Eye. However, the situation only worsened as the maniac wanted to kill him immediately. Realizing he would really die this way, he changed his approach, saying he was the only person who could help him because he knew a future that even the returnee did not know. Hyuk activated lie detection and discovered he was telling the truth, becoming scared by the existence of another seer besides Anna Croft. Dokja decided to go along with the idea, saying he was similar to a seer. Even if the returnees relive their lives, there will come a moment when changes in the past will affect the future. Dokja could not really see the future, but he could simulate something similar. Hyuk knew he would be useful in the future, but was still cautious about trusting him as an ally. Due to the circumstances, for now, he would be considered an ally, relieving Dokja as he managed to survive somehow. Before crossing the barrier, Hyuk asked one last question. If Dokja was really a seer, he should know his own future. While holding Dokja towards the sea serpent's mouth, he asked if he would drop him or not. Dokja knew this psycho as well as he knew himself and said he was not his subordinate, so he should treat him as an equal from now on. Hyuk asked if that was really his answer, but Dokja was confident and told him to drop him if he had the courage. The unexpected happened, and Hyuk really let the protagonist fall to be swallowed by the sea serpent. While passing through the monster's throat, Dokja tried to stay conscious until he reached the stomach, relieved not to be torn apart. However, looking around, he realized most people had not been so lucky. As he swam to a platform, Dokja was furious with Jung-hyuk, even understanding the reason for his action. When he enabled the messages, he was bombarded with a shower of sponsorships from the constellations that pitied his situation. Realizing the serpent began to move, Dokja knew he had at most 3 hours before it started releasing stomach acid. At that moment, the Dokkaebi appeared, saying things were getting interesting, but was surprised to realize Dokja had been waiting for him. Dokja had not lost hope. He would get out of there alive and still obtain something that would put him on his level. He asked if the Dokkaebi didn't need coins, as he had failed to complete the scenario. The creature was impressed with Dokja's perception and asked for 5,100 coins to let him live. That number was exactly the maximum amount he had, so Dokja asked if he could pay later. The Dokkaebi was not interested in negotiating the amount, so Dokja simply told him to go ahead and kill him. He knew the streamer couldn't do that, as he was in a good situation because of him. His reckless actions made the Dokkaebi angry, but before doing anything, Dokja said his real name and asked how the streamer life was going, making Baehyung and the constellations wary of his true identity. Before continuing the conversation, Dokja asked him to turn off the channel. Baehyung did so and asked how a mere human knew about the star stream. However, our protagonist says that this is not important right now. He knows that Baehyung's goal is to become a king Dokkaebi and offers a contract promising to fulfill this dream. Even though Baehyung initially seems enchanted by these words, he starts to laugh, thinking Dokja must have completely lost his mind. At this moment, we discover that Dokja did not select any supporter during the selection. The Dokkaebi says he cannot accept his offer since he is not a constellation, but Dokja clarifies that he is not looking for a sponsor but rather a channel. Baehyung is confused about what he means. Dokja wants to make an exclusive contract with his stream. Normally, this is a negotiation made between constellations and streamers, so the Dokkaebi finds it ridiculous for an incarnation without a sponsor to suggest a star contract. However, Dokja explains that it is precisely because he does not have a celestial sponsor that he is proposing this contract. There are two groups of constellations that watch the streams, those looking for entertainment and those looking for an incarnation to contract with. Since Dokja did not choose any, he is a magnet for the second type. Dokja claims that the constellations are probably euphoric, asking him to turn the channel back on, saying things like, "Who is this madman who opposes everyone around him?" Now that he has proven he knows exactly what he is doing, all Baehyung needs to do is shut up and follow his instructions to become a king Dokkaebi. Before resolving the fee for failing the scenario, Dokja says he has already completed all the necessary conditions for a another mission. As soon as he finishes speaking, a secret scenario appears, instructing him to kill the sea commander and escape from its stomach. While Baekhyun tries to calm the constellations, who are euphoric about turning off the channel, Dokja buys some items from the store. He starts looking for the ancient dragon, leaving the Dokkaebi startled, asking how he knows about this item. Even looking for legendary items, he ends up buying a spike and glue, leaving the Dokkaebi confused. Baekhyun turns off the channel and says he still has not agreed to his offer. The contract will only be signed if Dokja can complete the secret scenario. The protagonist seems quite confident he will succeed, so the streamer leaves, hoping he can make things interesting. Seeing on his cell phone that there is not much time left until the stomach acid is released, Dokja goes to the edges of the stomach and spreads the moss on the spike he bought. The acid starts to be released from all sides as Dokja prepares an attack. Sometime later, the sea serpent that swallowed the protagonist screams in pain. The stomach acid in its intestine is forming a whirlpool, while Dokja clings to one of the walls using the spike. He has lost track of time. He only has the hope of surviving. The stomach acid is no longer secreted, and the Dokkaebi appears, congratulating him on his achievement. 3 days have passed since the beginning of the scenario. Dokja, unable to stay awake from extreme exhaustion, falls asleep, completing the secret scenario and achieving an unprecedented feat, being the first to eliminate a rank 7 creatures. Baekhyun considers it excellent that he used the spikes to seal the exit of the digestive fluid. Additionally, the mucilage acquired by Dokja completely protected his skin from the acid's action. Before starting the attack with the spikes, Dokja applied the mucilage all over his skin, and to avoid succumbing to hunger, he absorbed the creature's life force through the spike. Dokja reveals that the hammer seahorse is resistant to digestive fluids due to its evolution after being frequently hunted by sea serpents. He breaks through one of the stomach walls and discovers the creature's core, an item that will be auctioned in the Dokkaebi shop in exchange for the broken faith. However, before proceeding, Baekhyun broadcasts announcements for the constellations to watch. He does this to sign a contract with Dokja without anyone noticing. Before signing, Dokja reads carefully and detects an error. The profit-sharing ratio is missing. The Dokkaebi proposes to split everything 50-50, but Dokja asks if he thinks he is a fool. After all, when a constellation donates to an incarnation without a sponsor, a high fee is charged, meaning the Dokkaebi already profits significantly from the protagonist's sponsorships. Dokja demands 100% of the profit, leaving only the commission for the Dokkaebi. Baekhyun tries to renegotiate, but forcing acceptance of the terms. Before leaving the beast's stomach, Dokja requests an advance of 5,000 coins, finally managing to escape and swim to the shore. It has been 3 days since he saw the outside world. Jungyuk took 4, so Dokja's performance was not that bad, and he still managed to secure a favorable deal with the Dokkaebi. Another point to consider is his unique ability, Fourth Wall. Dokja mentions a system error preventing him from opening his information window, and the Dokkaebi, when trying to see his information, is repelled by the fourth wall. Indeed, having an absolute ability even for administrators is advantageous. The protagonist enters the second main scenario and is immediately hit by toxic gas. In this scenario, the surface is uninhabitable due to the poisonous fog, and colossal monsters are scattered throughout the territory. Dokja takes advantage of the lawless world and robs a convenience store. To avoid breathing the toxic air, he uses a purifying pacifier. As he is leaving the convenience store, he hears a voice asking for help, and going to the back, he finds a badly injured woman. He carries her on his back and runs to the nearest station. However, when he arrives, he sees it is closed. The woman gathers her strength and tells him that the fourth exit is open. Heading there, some men try to close the gate but are stopped by Dokja. He orders them to open it, but the men tell him to leave, saying there is no space for more people. Dokja is confused, as he clearly remembers that in the novel, there was still plenty of space, and ends up forcing his way in. He puts the woman he rescued on the ground and gives her the pacifier to purify the poison that remained in her. She is probably an extra character who never appeared in the original story. While considering using the character list on her, he is approached by a group of clearly hostile men. They want to know who he is and how he got there, but they notice the woman sitting on the ground. Seeing the expressions on their faces, Dokja realizes they must have done something bad to her. The man in the suit notices the bags of food he brought and says he will let him live if he hands everything over. Dokja, as a reader, is tired of the cliché of these evil characters. While grabbing his spike, he thinks something bad will happen to them. The man in the suit takes his brass knuckles and decides to count to 3 for him to leave, but with just one punch, Dokja throws him far away. The others are scared, thinking he has a sponsor, but the reality is that his attributes are higher than theirs. survivors. He uses character identification and discovers that this guy's celestial sponsor is the monarch of the insignificant, also discovering that he is part of the Chioldu group. Confused about why he is still alive, the man tries to play a mind game, saying Dokja is also a killer, but he pierces his wrist and says he is not in the mood to hear that nonsense. His sponsor is a constellation known for not valuing its incarnations. In fact, its greatest fun is seeing them suffer at the hands of others. His companions beg Dokja to let him live, but just imagining what those bastards did to the woman fills his heart with rage. The man does not seem to have any remorse for what he did, so Dokja decides to make sure he never does it to anyone again. Dokja puts the woman on his back again and goes to the others. All the survivors have gathered at Gyumho subway station. As he descends the stairs, Dokja is spotted by Sangha in the middle of the crowd. Gil is the first to run to him and hug him, while Han apologizes for leaving him behind. The group kept hoping for his return because Jungyuk had said he would come back alive. However, when asking about Jungyuk, Dokja learns that he left the station the day before. At that moment, Dokja realizes why the Chioldu group is still alive. They should have all perished at the hands of the protagonist, but Jungyuk hurriedly left the station. In the third regression, Han became a monster who monopolizes everything, probably leaving without looking back. Suddenly, a group of armed men appears, led by the swindler who abandoned Dokja to die. He tries to turn people against the protagonist's group, but is interrupted by Chien In-ho, who suggests being friendly with all survivors. Dokja remembers hearing Chien's name before and suspects that as the group's leader, he will seek revenge for having his subordinates assaulted. Contrary to expectations, Chien praises Dokja, calling him a hero who fought monsters and saved many lives, even bringing food for the survivors. In a friendly manner, Chien welcomes Dokja to the station, while Dokja understands his true intention. The soldier explains that the 87 people present, although they do not mention it, completed the first scenario to survive, which implies that all are killers. The station is divided into two groups, a larger and a smaller one, with the larger group led by Chien In-ho, who controls the distribution of food and sends people to the surface to gather more resources. He-won, the woman Dokja saved, is one of those people. Dokja questions the soldier about his decision not to join the larger group. The soldier replies that he did not find it right to join the dominant group, but admits he is uncertain about what is right or wrong in that situation. Dokja asserts that it is better to worry about right and wrong than to simply make mistakes. At that moment, the swindler and his group approach. Chien invites Dokja to join them, even offering him a leadership position. Dokja questions what would happen if he refused. Chien, surprised by the possibility, states that Dokja, as a hero, has an obligation to lead the people. He points to the people at the station, saying they are suffering, but Dokja seems indifferent to this. Later, Hyeon-song questions whether Dokja needed to refuse in that manner, expressing concern about what In-ho might do. Dokja asks them to wait and see what happens, noting that it is lunchtime. While distributing food to his group, the people at the station surround him, questioning if he is monopolizing the food while being cursed by everyone. Dokja recalls that the worst type of person in a post-apocalyptic world is not someone driven by desperation like the one he faced before. Shin In-ho is a truly dangerous type, a person who uses others' desperation as fuel for his ambition. This man left Dokja with only two choices: either become a hero by sharing the food or a villain by monopolizing it. Watching the argument form from a distance, Dokja thinks that influencing people is easy for someone like him. He approaches, asking everyone to calm down and saying there was a misunderstanding. He claims that Dokja agreed to join the group and that he will redistribute the food as they'd always have. However, before continuing his lies, Dokja tells him to shut up. Dokja says he will share the food, but it will not be free, leaving people confused. He explains that he is not a charity, so he will accept 50 coins as payment for the meals. The people in his group question if that is not too expensive, but He-won asserts that it is a fair price and that she does not need free food. Thanking Dokja again for helping her earlier, she tells the others to control themselves, reminding them that Dokja risked his life to get that food. They had not thought about it that way and say they do not want free food either, paying for all the items they took so far. Gil gives 20 coins, but when Dokja notes he paid 10 more, he responds that it is for the chocolate he took earlier. He-won reveals that the larger group is monopolizing all the food, training everyone and sending them to the slaughterhouse, just as happened to her. During the night, while everyone sleeps, a crowd begins to approach Dokja's food store. At dawn, Hee-won is scared to see that they bought all the food, calling them scoundrels. We discover that the larger group bought most of the food. In-ho steps out of the tent and says that food distribution will be limited to only 3 biscuits per person, leaving people outraged. He says there is a way to get food without joining the search team, following Dokja's lesson and trading food for anything useful. Activating his crowd incitement ability, everyone at the station turns against Dokja, blaming him. Hee-won asks if Dokja's goal with the transactions was to weaken the larger group's power. He replies yes, but she argues he should not have sold the food to them because nothing changed. However, Dokja shows that he now has 1450 coins, leaving Hee-won questioning whether they should trust him. She asks if he left any food stored and finds out he sold everything, becoming even more suspicious. Gil offers a sweet he bought earlier, but Dokja refuses, taking the opportunity to tell everyone to eat the food they bought yesterday. After some time, Dokja observes the path of the tracks. Hee-won warns that everyone who went there died and asks if he is thinking of going. She thanks him again for saving her and asks Dokja not to touch the man who tried to hurt her, as she will personally take her revenge. Dokja thinks her personality is something the constellations would be interested in, so he checks her character profile. At that moment, Hee-won sees a woman and an old lady entering the tent. She knows that if they go hunting, they will probably die, but Dokja stops her, saying they will die of hunger if they stay there. Analyzing Hee-won's character profile, he sees that she has the crouching figure characteristic, a common trait with potential to evolve. Dokja says that even if they intervene now, nothing will change because the problem is the lack of food. They need to uproot the problem. While looking at his cell phone, he realizes that he should arrive at any moment. At that moment, the Dokkae begins to materialize at the station, but this time it is not Baehyung. He says he is a substitute because the streamer is being disciplined. Observing the situation, he wonders why everyone is so calm and adds an extra penalty, preventing people from storing food. All the food starts floating, and by touching his horn, all the food disappears. A new mission arrives for the participants, and Dokja is excited because now it is starting to resemble ways of survival. The swindler says that due to the current situation, he will need more people on the search team and will no longer share food with those who do not participate. He did not expect an additional penalty and wonders if Dokja knew this would happen. Dokja knew, having read the novel, but did not imagine they would add a survival tax. The soldier asks if they should join the search team, but Dokja replies that the surface is a deadly trap. The world has changed, so they need to find a new source of food. The monsters. Seeing the protagonist's group preparing to follow the tracks, In-ho comments that it is good to have a team working to complete the scenario. Dokja realizes he is probably relieved they did not join the search team, but of course he would not let that happen easily, asking to add one of his members to the team, the scoundrel who betrayed Dokja on the bridge. The soldier asks if he is sure about this, but the truth is that this useless person poses no threat. His main concern is Hee-won, who still does not seem to have fully recovered. She says they should worry about the child, while the soldier thinks it is a good idea to send Gil and the woman back. At this moment of argument, Dokja says they seem to be forgetting something. The world has completely changed, so there is no such thing as women and children being weak anymore. Gil activates his ability, creating a trail of light on the ground that connects to a cockroach. He explains that his characteristic is called insect collector, allowing simple conversations with them. Gil says there is nothing dangerous ahead and asks them not to worry, as he will not be a dead weight for the team. As they walk, Sangha encounters a wall blocking the way. As soon as she touches it, a new alternate scenario is initiated, and the monster hunt finally begins. The underground monsters are tier 9, hunt in packs, and are known for being persistent. Observing their carcass, Dokja wonders who other than Junhyuk could have done this. Hyeon-song asks if they will not be enough to complete the scenario, but since the mission says hunt, they will probably have to kill the monsters themselves. Dokja uses the monster carcasses to create improvised tools. He tells the group to invest all their coins in strength, endurance, and agility. Meanwhile, the land rats approach. The soldier is the first to advance, easily eliminating one. Even injured, Hee-won is also swift in her strikes, but lets one pass. Gil is not far behind and eliminates a rat with Sangha's help. Dokja is impressed because they are doing better than he imagined. Hee-won says she killed 2 and asks how many Dokja killed. He says he eliminated 4, while the soldier managed to eliminate 3. This slightly hurts Dokja's ego, who invested a fortune in his abilities. Observing the soldier's information, he discovers that he received the starter package, something the constellations give to incarnations they consider useful. useful. It is no surprise he became so strong. While examining the monster, Sangha asks how they should cook that thing, but Dokja replies that they will find a way. Noticing his indifferent response, everyone starts looking in his direction. Hyeon-song asks if he knows anything about what's happening to them. Dokja feels the suffocation that the returnee experienced in the novel, but before he can answer Hyeon-song's questions, Han screams desperately as he is carried away by a land rat. Sangha tries to help him by giving him a bone to hold on to, but she is also dragged into the rat's burrow. Dokja decides to invade alone with Gil and asks the soldier to take care of Hee-won, as she doesn't seem well. The place where the land rats live is called the Dark Fold because no light passes through it. While leading the way, Gil asks if Dokja intentionally let the monster take him. When the monster attacked, he was watching and noticed that Dokja intentionally allowed the monster to attack. Dokja explains that it is due to the rat's habit of hoarding treasures in their nest. However, Gil doesn't seem disappointed with the answer and says that if Dokja was only seeking items, he wouldn't have saved him in the subway. Before reaching the exit, Gil asks one last question, questioning whether Dokja is a god or the protagonist. Dokja replies that he is neither, but admits that he really knows about that world. Gil asks if any wish will be granted after completing the scenarios, mentioning that in stories like this, there is usually a prize at the end. Everyone who adapted to this world suffered in some way, some going mad and others becoming irrationally optimistic. Dokja responds that there is a prize at the end. While they finally reach the exit of the dark maze, they find a treasure chest, but Dokja warns that treasures are not the only thing the rats guard there. Several rats start appearing and surrounding the chest, while Han argues with Sangha. At this moment, we discover that Sangha only used the subway because her bicycle was stolen, obviously by the guy who wanted to offer her a ride. This leaves Sangha irritated with the swindler and thief. The constellations start getting tired of this useless discussion, so Dokja prepares something using the spike. He throws it with all his strength, almost hitting Han's head, revealing his presence. Sangha is happy to see Dokja, but he is worried about what is coming. The wall hit by the spike starts to crack and a loud noise echoes through the tunnel. The pressure is so great that the insects in the area explode and the Dark Guardian emerges. The explosion of the insects causes massive mental damage to Gil, so he will only be able to use communication once or twice. Dokja takes the opportunity to rescue the two, but when cutting the roots, his knife gets lost. This is the power of the Tier 7 demonic species, the Dark Guardian. At this moment, a message appears saying that the monster received the Demon King's blessing. He speaks a few words in an unknown language and activates his aura of fear ability, but the effects are nullified by the fourth wall. This leaves the Dark Guardian enraged and ready to attack. Dokja wanted to avoid fighting this creature but has no choice. Suddenly, Sangha says "mommy" and tries to communicate by mimicking the pronunciation of the demonic language. To everyone's surprise, the monster actually responds, leaving Dokja shocked that she can understand the demonic language in addition to Spanish. The monster is asking for someone to be the mother and points to Han, who gets angry saying he should be the father. The monster uses one of its tentacles to attack, placing something in Han's mouth. Dokja understands the meaning of the word mother and cuts the tentacle before it can do anything else. The monster screams in pain and attacks repeatedly until Dokja's bone sword breaks. Without a weapon, the situation becomes complicated. This guardian was not intentionally placed there to be killed like the sea serpent, so Dokja will have to use his plan B. He calls the Dokkaebi and says he should receive an item by message. The substitute replies that this is none of his business, but Dokja insists, pressured by the constellations. The Dokkaebi ends up releasing the auction item, and the broken faith begins to appear in Dokja's hand, preparing him to fight the monster. The Dokkaebi asks if Dokja can really fight something like that, as his sword is broken. Of course, Dokja already knew this. He activates an ability, making the sword shine and leaving the Dokkaebi scared. When he killed the sea serpent, Dokja bought the White Star Sword aura, which reacts with unshakable faith and creates a blade. The Guardian tries to attack, but Dokja cuts several of its tentacles with just one strike. Although he has a weapon to face the monster, his combat skills are trash. Dokja is a reader, not a swordsman, so he must fight like a reader. Thanks to the novel, he knows all the monster's attack patterns. While dodging, he activates the marker ability, using the second mark and copying the sword mastery ability. Dokja advances on the Guardian, cutting its tentacles. After 2 attacks, the monster always stops for a moment, and Dokja takes this opportunity to deliver a lethal blow. The creature mutters mutters some words. Sangha says it asked how he knew where it would attack. Dokja waits for the monster to fall and responds that he just needs to read a lot. The Dokkaebi and the constellations are impressed with his achievement. Dokja managed to create an ethereal blade early in the scenarios and defeat a tier 7 monster. He explains that the blade is not truly ethereal, the real one is much more powerful. Dokja announces that he has completed the scenario and awaits his reward. The Dokkaebi asks if he will not finish off the creature, but Dokja says he is not inclined to kill unnecessarily. The Dokkaebi comments that he would receive 7,000 coins, but Dokja still refuses and goes to search for the treasure chest. While Dokja searches for the treasure, Han takes the opportunity to deliver the final blow to the Dark Guardian. He shouts that he can also become strong, and that not killing in a world like this is foolish. However, while enjoying the rewards, he receives a notification that the Demon King of Wrath and Lust will hunt the person who delivered the final blow. Dokja explains that he did not kill on purpose because demonic species monsters are connected to their demon kings. They finally open the treasure chest. Each gets an item, but they do not seem very useful. Dokja tells them not to worry because there is still one more treasure. He takes out a mana brazier from the chest, a key item for the current scenario, as with it they can roast monster meat. Dokja is the first to taste it, enchanted by the flavor, and tells the others to try it too. Reading about the flavor and experiencing it are two completely different things. At this moment, Han comes to apologize and ask for permission to eat. While they are eating peacefully, Sangha asks how Dokja knows so many things and suggests that he read many web novels. Noticing that Dokja looks at the box a lot, she asks if he thinks there is something else. With her language understanding, Sangha deciphers that the box is for random items, leaving Dokja disappointed with himself. In fact, this box is the real treasure. In the novel, the flying fox was the first to discover its existence. In the original, she placed an object inside, and a limited edition item came out. When he sees Dokja messing with the chest, the Dokkaebi says that this item should have been removed from the game long ago. After placing the items, the chest lid closes and starts to glow. The Dokkaebi turns off the stream to avoid problems, and the system notifies that a high-ranking item has appeared. Dokja draws a sword, the unshakable faith that was broken, and is surprised to get a constellation artifact. He says to return because with the mana brazier, they will be able to complete the scenario easily. Gil warns that there are no insects for him to communicate with, as they all exploded with the appearance of the Dark Guardian. He uses his communication to discover the existence of another insect, but starts communicating in another language, causing an earthquake in the cave. The insect is a praying mantis on the surface. Dokja tries to wake him up, realizing that Gil is trying to connect with a monarch of the insect species, and tells him to stop using the ability. The mind control stops, and the giant praying mantis goes away. Dokja is scared by Gil summoning a species monarch, but asks him not to use that ability for a while. They decide to wait for another insect to appear in the area to return, but Sangha warns that she has an ability similar to Gil's. She guides the way using a line to walk in the dark. Dokja asks if this is her characteristic, but Sangha hesitates to speak. Dokja suspects that she made an additional oath prohibiting her from revealing information, and that her sponsor wants to train her. He tries to use character identification, but a new message appears saying that it is collecting information. Baekhyun also appears, complaining that the Dokkaebi messed up his channel. Back with the others, Hee-won is impressed with the flavor of the monster meat, while Baekhyun uses Dokkaebi communication to talk secretly with Dokja. Dokja asks if Baekhyun was called because of him. Practically yes, since he was called for turning off the channel and letting the commercials run for too long. He decided to ignore these warnings because a few trips to the administrative center are no big deal. He also talks about the random box and says it is his shameful past, making Dokja discover that the ridiculous item box was there because of him. Hee-won comments on the new items besides the mana brazier, while Hyeon-sung seems really satisfied with his item, making Hee-won envious. Returning to the station, they notice it is quite busy. In 20 minutes, they must pay 100 gold coins for survival. Most people there do not have enough coins and beg for help. The larger group uses their strength to torment the weak, making Hee-won furious and about to unleash her characteristic. At that moment, the swindler appears saying he is happy to see Dokja, asking how many coins he has and using his ability. Coins are power in this world, and currently, he is the person with the most coins at the station, making everyone beg for help. If Dokja helps everyone, he will probably spend around 2,000 coins. The problem is how many of these people really deserve his help. Everyone there is a killer who killed to survive. Baekhyun says things are getting interesting and that there are only 10 minutes left. Seeing the desperate crowd, Dokja asks why he should give them coin. The swindler starts laughing, saying he knew he would say that and that he has been like this since he arrived, even selling food for coins. These people are desperate, even asking for refunds for the purchase. The swindler says this is their last chance agents and tells him to return the coins to these people. Again, Dokja asks what happens if he refuses. Then the people from the larger group begin to attack Dokja, saying that if they kill him, they can recover their coin. Before they can truly get close, the arms of the one in front are ripped off. Dokja says that they are all pathetic and asks if they are really blaming him for the situation. Analyzing the gangster's profile, Dokja realizes that his stats are too high for a normal person. He turns to the frightened people and says he has nothing to do with what is happening and that they are only saying this because they are afraid of the larger group. Dokja questions why the group has more coins and abilities than the rest. When he arrived at the station a few days ago, there were 87 people, but now there are at most 50 left. The people say that the others died to monsters, but Dokja asks if they really believe that. If everyone was eliminated by monsters, why hasn't anyone from the larger group died? And why do they always come back stronger? Earlier, the gangsters commented that they would gain coins by killing him, but how do they know that you receive coins after killing someone? These words start to open people's minds, but there are only 7 minutes left. Dokja shouts, saying that if there is any pride left in them, they should fight for their lives and take back what was taken. That's how this world works. This speech motivates the crowd, which begins to attack the larger group, starting a civil war inside the station. Dokja easily eliminates several enemies without killing them. Meanwhile, Hee-won gets her revenge and begins to evolve her characteristic. The crouching figure inside her opens its eyes, blossoming into the judge of evil, the most powerful of the 3 judges. Hee-won asked Dokja to step back because she will take care of everyone. He activates the Hour of Judgment ability, and all constellations of lawful and good alignment agree with the use of the ability. The leader of the swindlers can fight but is badly injured, wondering how they lost the advantage. At this moment, he sees Hee-won as an unstoppable beast, eliminating all the gangsters in the station. Dokja and the others are frightened by the massacre. In a few seconds, she brings the leader of the swindlers to his knees. Even face to face with death, he looks at Dokja and asks how he did it before being eliminated. It's hard to believe that just a short time ago, they were sharing food and joking together. The survival fees are collected, and not everyone meets the minimum requirement. Hee-won falls to her knees, devastated by what she did, but Dokja extends his hand and says that the scenario has just begun. After the incident, most of the survivors leave the station. Besides Dokja's group, only 5 people remain. He believes they will manage, as they were strong enough to survive yesterday. Jung Hee-won, now known as the Judge of Evil, becomes an ally, while Han Mayan disappears without a trace. Dokja's group heads to the next destination. Hee-won gives him 1,500 coins, saying that this is his share because she would feel bad keeping all the coins. Dokja responds that he wouldn't have done that in her place, as he was the one who got most of the coins. Bahyang gives his share of the coins, 23,050 to be exact. With these earnings, Dokja takes the opportunity to level up his basic skills, as it is possible to evolve using coins. The group enters the second main scenario. The condition is to pass through the tunnel and find the survivors in the safe zone. As they continue through the station, everyone gets exhausted. As expected, the tunnel is infested with land rats, and they fight all the way. Noticing the team's fatigue, Dokja tells them to stop and rest for a while. The soldier suggests resting when they reach the station, but Dokja reminds them that they don't know if they can rest there. Sung decides to scout the area. When they finish, Hee-won asks where Dokja is. The soldier says he went to take a look outside. We discover the real reason Dokja asked to rest. According to the novel, this station is in front of the exit of Dongbuk University. Upon arriving there, he finds the large statue of monk Sam Yang and pays his respects. Bahyang observes Dokja's strange actions and wonders what he intends to do. Dokja climbs the statue and strikes it. Bahyang asks if he has gone mad because destroying the image of a constellation is not something that can be ignored. All images are sealed with the power of their respective constellation. To enter Chungmuro, Dokja needed the great monk's abilities and used a shortcut he saw in Ways of Survival. Dokja returns to the group, who asks about his pilgrimage. He obtains some items and plans to give them to the group. Hee-won gets the great monk's tunic and Sangha the prayer bracelet. Analyzing the items, they realize the effects are very good and ask how Dokja got them. He replies that he offered a prayer to a statue and the items fell from the sky. He thinks the great monk sent the items for Korea's future, just as he did in the past against the Japanese invasion. Sangha and Song are moved and thank him, calming the constellation's anger. Dokja tells everyone to get ready because they will soon reach their destination. A new scenario begins. A strong wind hits everyone, and the alternate scenario, illusory prison, is activated. Dokja sees the illusion of a woman calling his name, but before showing more of his past, the fourth wall blocks the illusion's effects. The illusory prison is a zone that shows your greatest trauma and drives you insane. Even Jung-hyuk would have difficulty with this part. Dokja tries to calm everyone, saying it is just just an illusion, but everyone is trapped in their nightmares except Sangha, who survives thanks to her bracelet's effect. He asks her to protect him while he destroys the zone. Dokja prepares and uses the Dispel Evil ability, dissipating all the smoke from the illusory prison. Even so, they are already too immersed in their nightmares. While trying to help them, Dokja is attacked by Hee-won. Her eyes are red, showing the first sign of the demon slayer. Dokja dodges the attack and quickly knocks her out. Even having completed the scenario, he cannot let his guard down because a tier 8 ghost species appears. The soldier wakes up from his nightmare. Dokja has already defeated all the spirits and collects the remaining stones. Since most of the attacks were psychic, it wasn't too difficult. Gil also wakes up, complaining of a headache. Dokja remembers that he was crying and apologizing to his mother, thinking that maybe this child had the most traumatic experience. They are almost at the station, but the group is not ready to fight and wonders if it is okay to continue. At that moment, a person appears, asking who they are. She points her sword and says that this is her hunting ground. Sangha recognizes the girl. She was the only survivor from Typhon Girls High School. Lee Ji notices the crystals the protagonist is holding and asks if they managed to defeat the specters to get there. Dokja also knew who she was, as Jiti is a main character in Ways of Survival. She is the main reason Hyuk went to the station first, as she is an essential character in the upcoming naval battle.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed it and share with your friends. See you in the next video. Bye for now.